You are listening to Peak One Sports.
Happy Saturday. You are listening to the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton, sitting here with Tony, Landen over there producing, getting you ready for your sports weekend. Now, Tony, I'm going to start off with a crazy, amazing, ridiculous, sad stat. And y'all may have heard it. The Detroit Pistons beat the Chicago Bulls on October 28th. And have not won a game since. After their loss last night to Orlando, Detroit has now lost 19 straight games. Wow. The Texas Rangers have more wins in the month of November than the Detroit Pistons do. Think about that. The Texas Rangers, who won Game 5 of the World Series on November 1st. Now, I'm not trying to make fun of Detroit. I just think I'm a sucker for stats like that. Wow. They have won more games than Detroit Pistons.
Are they in tank mode?
They're 2-20
already.
It seems like they have some talent.
They're a young team.
Like compare them to the Jazz. The Jazz seem like they have the least talent. And are definitely in tank mode. The Utah Jazz have won like 7 games. Over 3 times as many games as Detroit.
I mean, there might be an investigation by the NBA into the Pistons.
I haven't watched
losing games.
I haven't watched their games, so I don't know. I saw some highlights when they played Orlando. They lost
game in like 10 years.
I mean, when they were competing for a couple of championships in the early 2000s, that may be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Rasheed Wallace and yeah. The San Antonio Spurs also lost last night and have lost 16 straight. This is the third time in NBA history that two teams have at least a 16-game losing streak at the same time. If you want to be fun with it, the Spurs won on November 1st. So the Rangers have as many wins as the San Antonio Spurs and Detroit Pistons combined in the month of November. And it makes sense if you really think about it. It's not that crazy, but then...
They went an entire month without winning a game. Over a month now.
October 28th. So, yeah, it's
they didn't
a
win
month
one
and a
game
half.
In November.
October 28th is their last
halfway
win. Halfway through December. And it's hard to say, okay, let's go down their matchup, their list of next games, because NBA is a little different where...
No, anybody
can win. Who knows who plays with... Like, the Mavericks just went without Luke and Kyrie for a few games. And hashtag headband Luka. Now, he's been wearing a headband.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been watching. And the Spurs is another thing, because we thought early on the Spurs were going to be decent. They started out okay. Like, before the season, you said they would finish last place in the West. We'd be like, okay, that'd be a little disappointing, but I get it. It's very early in their rebuild.
A young team.
And the way Wembanyama came out, we thought, okay, man, he's for real. And he's still doing pretty good.
He's not going to be that impactful rookie like you would see from others, the LeBrons and
but yeah, just a crazy stat. Staying in the NBA, huge matchup coming up. As you say, the Lakers and the Pacers for the
Pacers on the verge of their first championship since 1973 in the ABA
in-season tournament. Which one's worth more, an in-season tournament championship or an ABA championship?
Maybe an ABA championship. What? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know.
We're going to look like idiots in like 5 years if this is like a world stage type.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure
thing.
It probably will be.
So if LeBron James says he really cares about this when it's like a 15th of his salary that he might win.
It's $500,000?
I think LeBron, look up what LeBron's salary is this year. I think it's all like he's going towards possibly owning the Las Vegas team eventually or something like. I know he's talking about being an owner in the future. He's just trying to build hype, right? Like he doesn't care.
7.61 mil.
7.6, so a
47.
Okay, so roughly a 14th less than a 14th of his salary. Like if you're a
But when you're going trying to buy a NBA franchise or start an NBA franchise, maybe
what's an
you're
extra
going to
half a mil.
Hey, that could.
I mean,
that
in
could be the
California,
difference.
that's like a couple $100,000 after taxes. Is there even a point? No, the league minimum guys probably love this. It's like over half their salary.
I mean, the entire Pacers team is going to love this. Probably their
and this
yearly,
is gonna, if the Pacers win, this is gonna be spun every year as like anybody can win it. I don't know where the Pacers are in the standings, but
I'm not sure.
I know they're outside the playoff race.
I
Weird
think
to say
that
this
could
early
be
on.
that. I think that this in-season tournament needs that
Yeah,
because at this point in the season doesn't dictate where you're going to be at the end of the year. And just like in a regular season, if you don't have this in-season tournament, you're going to have your ups and downs throughout the season. Your mid-season might not look like what you're going to look like when the playoffs
that's
come around.
true.
You might be fighting to get into the playoffs, like, for example, the Texas Rangers. You fight to get in the last spot, and then you get hot at the right time. The NBA is very much the same. Injuries have something to do with it. So, this might be more of a curse for the Lakers to win this because they've gotten to such a high point.
yeah.
Like, how can they top that?
I mean, I think they were half joking, saying that they'd put a banner up if they won. But the Lakers, like they're a different, like the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA, or the Dallas Cowboys may be the Lakers of the NFL. If you like, because they don't put up banners, except they won't put up conference championship, division championship banners. So there's no way they do this. I don't know who said that, if they were joking or whatever, but they talked about they think it's a rousing success ratings wise, and of course they're getting better ratings than a normal game.
I mean, ratings from, if you look at for a tournament game last week between the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors, it was a 93% increase over a game in a comparable window from last season.
Okay,
So for me,
Sacramento Golden State was the tournament game,
yes,
and that's a good point, because if you were going to bring up the Lakers, I was going to say it's a Lakers game, but it's a Sacramento small market. Golden State's a big market, but Golden State's having a terrible year too. So that is a good game to bring up, because two teams that, I mean, Sacramento's doing.
So it was
okay,
a 93% viewership increase from that same time window last season.
So if Milwaukee would have beat Indiana in the semifinals and you had an LA Milwaukee championship, they would probably try to spin it as the potential NBA finals matchup, and that would be good if those teams made the NBA finals to look back. It's, to us is I don't know if players are playing any hard, like maybe in the in-tournament championship game semifinals they are. I don't know, like in group stages, if they were necessarily playing harder. The NBA probably said, hey, step it up, and no
I mean, I definitely think there's
no resting your players, no load management,
competitiveness, and maybe depending on how this in-season tournament evolves, that becomes something that does build a lot of hype. Obviously, this is the first season, but you're going to have more competitiveness in the first half of the season versus, for me personally, with all the other sports that go on and coming off of baseball, and you have everything else that's built up, I don't really get locked into NBA until about Christmas.
Yeah.
Around Christmas time, Christmas games, I love watching those. Those seem to be good competitive games. From that point on, when you roll through the first of the year up to the All-Star break, that's when the NBA gets very competitive. For me, the fall time is just teams are still trying to figure it out. You got early season injuries, guys that didn't come in healthy. They're not quite in shape to play. It's hard for me to get fully locked in. I think this does help you lock in a little bit.
Yeah.
For me personally, I don't care about the in-season tournament. It doesn't matter. If my team won it or didn't win it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I couldn't care less at the matter. I couldn't tell you how they did in those games, because last time we talked about this, we weren't really sure about the format. It was just kind of random game, like Friday nights or something. Everyone would play their game one, and then they'd go back to your normal. They'd go back and forth, and they're still doing that now. During the, I don't know if it worked the same way during the group stages, but in the elimination rounds, the games that were played were those were the only games being played. Everybody else was off, and it'll be the same for the championship. It'd be the only game that night. But it's kind of interesting going back and forth, like going back into. I don't know if that helps or not, because it's kind of like when you turn on a game. The only way you know it's an in-season game or a tournament game if you are locked in and know, or I guess the court.
And I wonder if that's why they didn't do the courts that way. Because
people
you
had
would know
no
if you
clue.
randomly tuned in, you would know, oh, this is a playoff game. On this other channel, the Mavericks are playing a regular season game. You would know the difference.
And I think that's why they did it where they had at least the elimination tournament games. These are the only games on today, tonight, whatever. And I think people get more used to that. But yeah, half the time it's like I didn't even know if these games were in tournament games, whatever, unless the court has been the giveaway. And that's probably why they did it that way.
Adam Silver said in an interview I saw that it was kind of a last-second thing with the courts, so that they're always kind of cookie-cutter this year, but next year they want to just, like, basically pay.
It would be like a city.
You get a guideline of what you can't do, and then the owners, the teams, just get to pick whatever they want to do.
And I think that's fun.
I like the idea. I haven't seen any that I particularly like. There's a couple. We probably should have had some, ideas like, hey, I like this court or whatever. It's hard to watch the games when the courts kind of like Oregon Ducks court. They have like the trees and everything. I find it hard to watch sometimes.
Nets courts like that.
Yeah, very similar, really dark.
Yeah, it's just an odd thing. Like, I don't know, it's different.
Sound like watching Boise State football.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cool gimmick, and then you're like, do I really like watching this?
Yeah.
But it's been great for knowing. I think that's why they thought the idea is like, how are people going to know these are?
I could see them doing
games?
this just like they do with the City Edition. It's going to be like a
which
I think they do. They have City Edition courts, right? Like
but they don't
change
go.
out.
Like, I don't think if
But
the
I think
Mavericks
this will be
decided
like wild.
If the Mavericks decided they wanted a court like that, like mostly blue, you probably aren't allowed. I don't know the.
Here's an
court
idea.
rules.
If one of the NBA teams hit me up, I'll help you design this. Do a blacktop court. Make it look like a Brooklyn blacktop, like, you know what I mean? Like the pattern, texture, look of
like
asphalt
street
black.
ball.
Yeah, how cool would that be? Maybe some graffiti.
Do that for the All-Star game.
Maybe the 3-point lines and stuff look like hand painted, like spray painted.
I can see
splatter.
that being like how each team has their own theme for the City Edition, whether it be throwbacks
That
or
would
whatever.
work for like Brooklyn or something. Or
New York.
Like New York.
Yeah.
What?
Maybe
What if
LA.
you had like a
Or
theme
LA.
for the in-season tournament every
Miami.
year?
Yeah.
Miami could be like a Miami Vice, Miami Beach
Yeah.
Dude, that's
vibe.
fair.
Maybe you have
It's
on the outside the court lines, the bound lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sand up to the asphalt look, or pavement, whatever it is, and it's like sand. You know how it would be brushed up. Dude,
That would look.
NBA, hit me up. Let's design some stuff.
Hashtag or at NBA.
Hashtag Apogee Grafix.
And this episode can be brought to you by Apogee Grafix. Also, like and subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button if you like us. Hit it twice if you don't. Also, Betalytics, one of our sponsors. Bet with your gut. Don't bet with. I keep saying bet with your gut. Don't bet with your gut. Don't be like Cole and bet with your gut. Like, revamp this. Okay, Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. Let Betalytics do the hard work. Sign up today with promo code PEAK1. You get 25% off when you sign up. Shank It Golf is another one of our sponsors. Golf is fun, so dress like it. You can go and check out all their apparel. The link's down below. Use promo code PEAK1 and you get 15% off your order today. So hopefully by the time this is posted here in a little bit, Shohei Ohtani has not made his decision, making this entire conversation void.
Before
Null
we
and
go to
void.
baseball, I think
Okay.
we did miss something from the NBA.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, on Wednesday, the Mavericks beat the Jazz 147-97.
Oh, Luka,
But
headband
in
Luka.
that, he finished the first half 29-10 for 17 shooting, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists in 20 minutes.
The highest scoring triple double
In the first half, he
in
joined
a half.
Westbrook, Sabonis, and Jokic for the only player since 2000 to do it.
Has it been done before then? Like that's
just
weird to
since
say only
2000.
since 2000.
Westbrook and Jokic did it twice. So it's happened 5 times before him.
A triple-double in the first half.
Triple-double in the first half. He is the highest ever. And it was a 60th career triple-double. He passed Larry Bird.
Yeah,
and he finished the game with 47?
Something crazy like that.
I think it was 40. Yeah, I mean, it was 40, at least 40.
At the end of he set out the fourth quarter. So in 3 quarters.
He had a 40-point triple-double in 3 quarters.
In 3 quarters, he went 40, 10. He had 11 assists. So he got 10 assists in the first half. And
he only had 1 assist in the third. Yeah.
But he's a ball hog.
Well, but they won by...
But he's averaging 10 assists a
like
game.
50 in that game or something.
Yeah.
Like it was...
Yeah,
they won a lot. I mean, he had 34 points, 10 assists, and he didn't have a triple-double last night. But they won by quite a bit. So
one scary part of that game that Kyrie went out, sources say he left the arena in a wheelchair.
But he played last night, though, right? Oh, last night. You're talking about last night?
Last night he was injured. Dwight Powell fell on his foot. So, and then he was seen after the game.
Another reason Dwight Powell shouldn't play.
Yeah. Get him out of That's what the first thing I thought.
He's as soon as the playoffs start, oh my gosh, Lively, come on, man. But so we were on Ohtani watch. We thought he was going to make a decision yesterday. They said it was inevitable. There was a lot of very reputable people breaking that he was signing with Toronto. One person said he signed with the Dodgers. But as of right now, at the time of this recording, this will be posted very, very soon, in the next hour or so. He said his agent said he's not made a decision. But it is down to LA and Toronto, strangely enough. I don't know about Toronto.
I saw a post on Instagram that somebody found a private chartered flight going from LA to Toronto yesterday. It was in the morning.
I mean, he's meeting.
You can't see who chartered the flight.
But they just know that there was a
chartered flight from LA to Toronto.
I mean,
if I had a plane,
that just means like he's still going.
If I had access to a charter plane, I would be pulling stunts like that. Not as an athlete. Like I would just go and book flights out, and they'd be like, "Oh, look, he's going here." Like, no, I'm going there.
So apparently, because we don't know much about Ohtani, he's a very quiet guy. He's made a lot of demands, like keep quiet, and maybe he's doing that. He's like, let's just stir it up some more. But that's weird. We're thinking like Giants. Yeah. Dodgers. I know the Cubs were involved, but it's not like Toronto. Like Toronto's a big market, but Toronto's. I mean, and look at where they are. They're not.
But they don't get the nationally televised games
they're a playoff team. I mean, they were a playoff team this year. I don't think like you put them on the Dodgers, they're probably favored. I mean, they're probably favored to win the World Series anyways. The Giants, they can make.
But isn't that his criteria? He wants to go to a contender.
Yeah.
So the Giants were a wild card team this year, assuming that they're going after free agents after him. I don't know how you have to do that.
I mean, it is the Giants, so I would at Toronto, sure, I would worry about that. But there are a lot of free agent dominoes waiting to fall. Yeah. I guarantee, I don't know about with Toronto, I don't know their money situation. I guarantee you if he signed with San Francisco, they would get 3 more big name free agents before that. I'm not worried about San Francisco making moves. Maybe Toronto can make moves. Like I said, I don't know. They're kind of like, they're a big market, but they're not, you don't think of them as a big powerhouse in Major League Baseball. Putting Ohtani on let's say they had the exact same roster as they did last year. Putting Ohtani on there, I don't think moves the needle much in terms of contenders. Dodgers were already one of the top contenders last year. He definitely makes a move.
Take him out as a pitcher and you're looking at his offense production only. Toronto would be making moves to mimic what the Rangers did.
He would 100% unless they sign Jordan Montgomery, Snell. Not that Montgomery's better than Ohtani pitching wise, but depending on if they sign some better pitchers, Ohtani's their best pitcher. But I know he's not pitching.
The Rangers just proved that doesn't matter. Obviously, people are going to still go after pitchers. The Rangers proved that if you build enough offense, you can just out-hit teams and outscore runs on them, beat them to the end. It's a race then.
It's kind of like winning in 1-run games or in hockey winning in overtime. Like,
well, when you've got the big bats like what the Toronto's going to have, if they had Ohtani and you have Gallardo,
Yeah.
And Bichette,
Guerrero Jr.
sorry. Bichette, I mean, their offense, they got a pretty good, the meat of their offense is going to be good. They may turn 1-run games into 2 or 3-run games.
Yeah.
You buy yourself
they
an
just haven't
opportunity.
managed to have everybody have, like, everybody's had good seasons. They've had,
Just putting it all together at one
yeah,
time.
they've had, Bichette had a good season 2 years ago. He's kind of had a down year this year. Guerrero played good this year. It's just everybody's playing at a different level constantly. Nobody's playing.
I think Toronto offered him more money, and they hadn't figured out that they offered it in Canadian dollars. So really, when you transition over, it's not quite out, but yeah, it's less. And then by the time he signs, it wouldn't matter. He could just sit out. He'd get pissed off. Hey, it's guaranteed. My shoulder hurts and don't play. He's gonna get paid one way or the other. But yeah, Ohtani watch. Hopefully, he waits till later today to sign. I think he goes to the Dodgers. I can't if it's down to Toronto and LA. I can't unless there's a wild card that.
I mean, unless he just wants to get out of LA.
But if everybody's keeping quiet, how do they know like what teams are narrowed down at this point?
Well, not everyone's keeping quiet. They're keeping quiet like on some of his demands. The teams are keeping quiet, but like what's that dude's name? The Kelly, the pitcher for the Dodgers when when the Astros like he was doing he got fined for doing the crybaby. Joe Kelly. I was thinking Jeff Kelly. Joe Kelly. He had already come out, I think, on a podcast and said that the Dodgers asked him if he would give up number 17. Like, apparently that was supposedly one of Shohei's demands is he wants 17.
Did he agree to it?
I don't know. I mean, surely he did. I don't think if you're not going to do it, you're going to come out against your team and say, they wanted me to give up 17, and I said no. Like, if you're saying, I really don't want to give up my number, you're probably not going,
Yeah.
They're like, that's funny.
But then
You just got traded.
no, hey, I'd take him. We need some relief pitching, right? But some people have speculated that means he's going to the Dodgers. I think that's just
Which an outfield spot for the Dodgers is opening up, right?
With who?
Mookie's going to second full-time.
Oh, is he? I don't know.
Yeah, they announced that he'll be their full-time second baseman next season.
and
So you have maybe that was part of they were opening up a right field spot.
but for sure
Still
you're gonna check if they have number 17 available before you sign. I mean, you're not gonna tell Joe Kelly we signed Ohtani. You have to give up 17. It's like more like, are you willing to do it? But Ohtani, I mean, you can't stop players from talking, and it's kind of where people are calling him a diva. I don't know how to take it because I don't know anything. I can't tell you that I've ever heard him outside of an interview and maybe a commercial ever talk
if
or
that's even a thing he asked for, either maybe it's something that the Dodgers are like,
or kind of preparing. Hey,
Yeah.
we're going to offer you number 17.
I mean, I've seen the Yankees have 23 open, 18, and 17 open. So
What
they can
number?
sign all of them.
What number did he wear in Japan? I can't.
17.
He did wear 17, so that's definitely like his number. We'll see where he signs. Juan Soto traded to the Yankees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big move.
I don't think it's going to work out how they think it's going to work. I think it's going to work out how Anthony Rizzo worked out, where you get a big pull side lefty that ends up not being as good there because they're just trying to pull to the short porch. But someone like Aaron Judge excels there because he can get beat
Hit
by a
all fields.
fastball.
Juan
and
Soto
still-
has made more of his career, at least lately, just hitting it right up the middle. Like you would think, it's more of a hitter's park than
He
San
played-
Diego's. That's still
he
Petco
played
Park.
Great in Washington because he went to the opposite field a lot more. He went to left field a lot more.
Yeah.
He would hit home runs to the right side, but he would go. Washington doesn't have the ability to hit a ball out of right field like Yankee Stadium does.
Mm-hmm.
So he could just.
The Yankees have a good roster too. I don't know what their issue was last year. Did they end up finishing last? I don't remember them or the Red Sox finished last, but it was
close.
one of their worst
They also
years.
The Yankees also signed Alex Verdugo from the Red Sox to get outfield help.
I mean, why isn't Ohtani talking with the Yankees? Like why aren't they in that mix? The Rangers were in the mix longer than the Yankees were. Is there a spot for him in the lineup to hit? I mean, obviously he would hit any lineup, but Is there are they
I think at a
upgrading
certain
much if
point
they go for?
you do start to fill up your roster. I mean, the Yankees have got some big bats, and all their bats are outfielders.
I don't think there's a spot open for him.
I mean, if they signed him today, he would definitely be in the starting lineup. But how much for $500 million, $600 million contract? How much are you upgrading?
Paying for a DH?
Yeah, and how much are you upgrading from? Because I think Soto was already projected to hit sixth in that lineup, so it kind of makes sense. But you'd think that they weren't even in the conversation. Which is weird for the Yankees. And the Padres, on the other hand...
Does Ohtani actually put them over? I mean, they were last place. He's coming from a last place team to a last place team.
I don't think they're... the talent level, 100% Yankees
on paper,
should be a playoff team. Angels or a bad team. Not last place. Oakland was last place, but that's a completely different... That's nearly a minor league team. Or I guess Las Vegas will be in a few years.
Does he? I don't think Ohtani, even as good as he
is,
is,
on his own. No,
he doesn't. He doesn't come to this lineup. The Yankees. What the Yankees are going to put on the field in 24. Ohtani doesn't.
They should be
more games back than they lost by last year.
No, but they should be better without any changes. Yeah, they should be doing. I mean,
I don't know that he's the one that puts them over the top though, especially without an arm. They have the offense on that team.
Yeah, maybe. I mean. But teams are also, I think, are looking at if you're giving him $500 million, you're looking at the future. He's going to be, or they're betting on that he's going to pitch again. I think it's a big gamble,
and I'm actually not sad that the Rangers didn't continue to pursue him, or he didn't pursue the Rangers, however it worked out. Because I think that money can be spent well. I mean, obviously you want the greatest players you can get, and when you've got maybe one of the all-time greatest, but how much of the needle does he actually move? I mean, we've seen Trout play on the Angels for well over a decade, and he hasn't moved the needle for them, and he's been one of the greatest players.
Ohtani and Trout together. You know what I mean?
They didn't. Yeah, they couldn't do it. So one player in baseball doesn't make that difference. A lot of it's how they're managed.
They've signed a bunch of big names too, and they're looking at signing Yamamoto, the pitcher from Japan.
That's true. The Yankees are looking for guys, and that's different when you have an international player like that. You're paying. You're essentially having an auction to just pay to have the rights to, because the Rangers had the same thing with Yu Darvish. So you're paying that money regardless. If you don't sign him, you don't get that money back. So you're paying to have the rights to deal with him plus pay him as well.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto is the second ranked, out of the top 30 ranked free agent pitchers, Yamamoto is second. After Ohtani.
But essentially this year, because Ohtani's not pitching, Yamamoto is the number one free agent
above guys
pitcher.
Like Blake Snell, Aaron Nola, Jordan Montgomery, Sonny Gray, Josh Hader, Clayton Kershaw.
That's interesting. Outside of Ohtani, he's the best pitcher.
So his stats
free agent market
in the Japan Pacific League and the Japan Western League: 16 for 6, 146 innings pitched, 2.12 ERA, and a .88 WHIP.
What will that transmit? Would that cross over? I mean, in general, there aren't any major pitchers that have just been a bust.
No.
Like if you look at it on a scale of MLB careers, like if you expect them to come over and be like Hall of Famers, maybe not. Yu Darvish is having a great career, still pitching for San Diego. I think his hype was a lot higher. Where you look like that was kind of down.
I mean, for the Rangers, you hope that he was your savior, and he couldn't do it alone.
Yeah, no, I mean, but he was definitely your ace for a few years, and did obviously Ohtani's doing great. So I mean, I think it's bold to call him your best pitcher in your free agent market, but he's going to get money regardless. You can call him your fifth best pitcher. It's not going to hurt his market.
He very well in the World Baseball Classic too.
Yeah.
He's from Japan?
Yeah, he's from Japan. He's Japanese.
And San Diego, like their owner just died, and I think people are worrying that they're just going to, because obviously they just traded Soto away, that spending all that money hasn't worked, and that they're going to revert back to their, and just sell, they're obviously Snell's probably not going to be there. So you're talking about your best pitcher and your best player gone. And then you're looking at Tatis, who that would be like the Rangers giving Evan Carter like a 12-year contract right now. And maybe Tatis was a little bit further than Evan because he probably had a full season before he got his contract. I would kind of be excited if Evan Carter got like, hey, we locked up Evan. Although you still have probably 6 years of control with Carter right now. You don't need to do that. But of course, Tatis had steroid issue. He's been said to be a locker room issue. If you compare him to Evan Carter, I don't think Evan Carter's going to have any of those issues. That's just not his personality. But Tatis was definitely one who's going to be on your books for a while. And he's just not like, obviously he was suspended some of this year, but he just did not have the production that you thought he was going to be having forever. You thought he was going to be the face of baseball for a while. And very, very limited time he was.
Yeah.
You know, commercials and everything. Like he was more of the face than Trout was.
He got hurt a ton.
A lot of defensive issues playing shortstop.
Yeah, he came back after he got hurt, and
They were looked at, was it last year or the year before, as having like the best middle infield in baseball. And obviously the most expensive because it was like almost $1 billion.
that was after they bought Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah. So it looks like San Diego's kind of on the downturn, and you have to wonder with new ownership, like what's their game here?
Yeah, do they want to blow it up?
Yeah.
Sell, start over.
And obviously it's not working with normal ownership. Like if the Rangers would have spent all the money they've done and regressed, would the owner want to go out and spend more money? Not to mention if it's like, okay, we have a new owner and we don't know what they may not even know exactly what they want to do. But that's definitely one, like maybe the Yankees are a big brand and a big name, but I think San Diego might have been more disappointing last season because I mean, Yankees always have a big payroll, but San Diego like went out and got, outside of Tatis obviously was homegrown. You went out and got a lot of big names, and it's just not panning out for you. And not a big market. Anyways, I mean, a good baseball town, but not a big market. So I can see them going the opposite way. It helps, I think, the Rangers because I think they might be favorites to get Snell now, depending on what they do with Montgomery. Switching over to NFL, Trevor Lawrence is questionable to play Sunday after an ankle injury, which I think is pretty amazing. We thought he was going to miss a few weeks.
Yeah.
He injured it last week against Cincy.
Yeah. Well, this week my fantasy team has pretty much died. I have two.
I'm not
starting
playing you, am I?
No, I'm playing him.
Damn.
2 starting receivers out. Tank Dell broke his. I don't know. I have to look.
What I'm hoping for is that Justin Jefferson coming back.
Yeah.
For my fantasy team.
Well, I have him on like one of
He
our
should
leagues.
I'm
bump
hoping
that IR spot up maybe 2 or 3.
I'm hoping that he comes back hot.
No, in
This is a
the
good
summer meetings, we'll have
Because
that.
I've just been hanging on in that top 3 spot, in I think both leagues. And
I'm dead last.
Man, if you look
And
at my tight end
Justin
room, I might have
Jefferson
the 4 of the 5 best tight ends in the league,
I
and
think
3 of
that-
them are injured.
I think that if Justin Jefferson can come back hot, it's gonna bode well for me going into the playoffs.
My team has just been riddled with injuries. Not an excuse. It's just
No,
and normally I don't care, but I have a lot of IR spots. I agree with you. I think I have 3 guys out for the season. Mark Andrews, one of them, but we're in a dynasty league in our league, so I can't just drop him. I could, but I don't. Yeah,
So now you're just having to sit on him.
I have Tank Dell oblique. Christian Kirk has to get surgery on his core or something. Both happened in the first quarter. So I got 0 points twice for both of them. I have Isaiah Pacheco out, and then Ramondre Stevenson is also out this week. Oh, and Raheem Mostert's questionable in my starting lineup. So
Yeah, Mark Andrews, Dallas Goddard. I can't.
there's a lot of injuries.
Outside of like Kelsey, like
You know,
I
I
have
went
like
and
some of
picked
the
up
best tight
last
ends.
week the Cardinals tight end. I couldn't even tell you his name. This is like their second, third, fourth string. He put up like 19 points
Yeah.
in fantasy. Like for me, that was like one of the
Still projected
best.
to win, too, so.
Oh, that's good. Like I think I'm at the outside looking in the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence playing, I mean, is big for Jacksonville. In the South Division, they have a narrow lead, just one game over Houston and Indy.
Yeah.
And they're just behind Miami and Baltimore, tied with Kansas City for the number 1 seed.
I think it's big for the Jags that Trevor Lawrence plays because Christian Kirk is out for the season, and he was a big target for him. Really, they have 3. I wouldn't say they have 3 not as known receivers, like not big stars, but they're all great receivers. Christian Kirk,
Calvin Ridley.
Like they have a good receiving core. I don't know, Christian Kirk out. Houston also has Tank Dell out, so there's two of the teams are missing big targets, but I think Trevor Lawrence being in this week is either going to really help them if he stays healthy this week and they win. It might help them a lot, but if he gets injured again, their season might be over.
So, does Aaron Rodgers play this year?
He's back to practice this week, right?
Why would he, though? Why would he? The Jets aren't even...
No, he's like officially suited up in practice now.
The Jets aren't even... Did you hear Pat McAfee? He had Aaron Rodgers on. I think he was just kind of trolling a little bit. He said, people are saying that you never tore your Achilles. Like, this is all, like, I don't know what his motivation would be. He's like, dude, you tear your Achilles, you're in a wheelchair.
You can see it, walking. You could see it in the saw. You could see it pop. I mean,
it's a real, like...
He's trolling. I think he's just trolling, like, journalism and the media in general, saying fake news or something. Like
people who really do believe. Like, I've seen it on Twitter and stuff, like conspiracy theorists thinking that he didn't tear his Achilles.
No, I think this is a
motivation that he doesn't believe.
Knock on modern medicine to say that the herbal medicines and the lifestyle that Aaron Rodgers lives, like that can't work. It absolutely works.
I don't see him playing because I don't think the Jets will. But
I don't think he has to play.
Yeah,
if they were a playoff team,
it might be different. I don't think they will. But at the same point, is Aaron Rodgers gonna, like, when push comes to shove, what happens? But if Aaron Rodgers steps on a football field again this season, I think everything people made fun of him for, retreats, tripping balls out in the forest, I think all that gets reevaluated.
We also don't know how, like, there's different levels to it. Like, I don't know if he tore it all the way through. Like, did it split the tendon?
They cut it apart. Like, they showed how they repaired his. I mean, it was completely. They
tore it the rest of the way.
Yeah,
and
they cut it through, and then they peel it and they stretch it back down and like tie it off through into the bone. And it's
that'd be something. I don't think he would. Yeah, I would be more interested if the Jets were contending or at least had a playoff slot, because I would want to see if he was. But I don't think there's any chance they let him, even if they could.
Shortly after he was on the Pat McAfee show, shortly after he tore it, doing therapy, and he's doing like the compression boots, but it's like cryo compression, and like, I think what he does in his lifestyle truly is, seeing him recover from this is a testament to what that lifestyle could do for you.
Yeah, and we saw, like, they'd show Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers just looks really old in comparison. They're like, Tom Brady's 7 years older or whatever. Of course, Tom Brady has obviously had plastic surgery, and
Tom Brady's been living this lifestyle for a long time as well too.
Yeah,
with he's got his own line of stuff of all natural things, and I think he eats very little meat. It's very he's very conscious about what he's putting in his body. But when you live in these all natural lifestyles, man, it's pretty, especially for a quarterback.
Now, obviously, it's probably more of Aaron Rodgers' lifestyle.
It's not genetics too. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, but it may not be as much as the Jets medical team, but I think the head of the Jets medical team is going to get paid a lot in his future for facilitating.
And I think by watching Hard Knocks, and I know we see what they want us to see, but it seems like Aaron really enjoys being in New York and being in that organization. They have good facilities. He kind of runs it. I mean, not to take anything away from Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers kind of runs that team.
And that's why I asked, does he play again?
Robert Saleh's okay with that. Like, he's okay with, like, he understands who Aaron Rodgers is and what he is. He's not fighting against him, where in Green Bay, that was kind of the issue there, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was this head battle, and maybe it's having a young coach versus this player, and the coach is trying to prove something. And
Yeah. That's why I asked, does he play again? If he's at any, pick your random quarterback, whatever Josh Allen's status is in Buffalo, Dak Prescott in Dallas, like, it's not up to them whatsoever, and they're probably fine with that. But that's why I asked, is because if Aaron Rodgers can get back on the field, that's not what I'm asking. I was like, would he push his weight? And I think they would sit him down and be like, dude, we can't. You can't. There's no reason for you. If you tear that again, dude, you're out. Let's just capitalize on it, and you're going to be 1,000% for the start of next season. But I don't know what his motivation. He might say, hey, I want to get out there.
Say, I'm going to show that I returned. The last play of the game.
The last play of the season. Just go in. Nobody
takes a
touched
snap and kneels the ball.
Nobody. Just to say, hey, I came back and played. Back up to college football, because this might take a big chunk of what time we have left. The Heisman Trophy presentations tonight. You got Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr. I haven't seen a lot of coverage and hype on it, because I can't remember the last time there was, out of the playoff or the national championship, that the Heisman Trophy potential winner is not. Like, none of these players are in the playoff. Yeah, maybe Johnny. Well, but they're not the winner, but whoever he went against was probably.
Oh, you're saying that there was no playoff contenders in the race?
Yeah, like, I can think, like Vince Young, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. Like, every year, just throw by default the quarterback that's playing for the national championship team, or a player. But like these three.
Well, Ewers has been out a lot.
Yeah.
Milroe for Alabama, he had a slow start to the season. He didn't look good early in the season at all, and he's come on late.
I guess the only other case would be for the Washington quarterback, or whatever his name is.
You thought Caleb Williams might have, but, that didn't work out, and USC wasn't it. But, I mean, not for like a try, and Ohio State wasn't far from making it, although, I mean, they weren't going to make it, but they were.
And Michigan's been more of a team with team wins than individual stars.
And Jaden Daniels, obviously big hype. We thought LSU was going to make a run, and then Bo Nix wasn't far. They win the.
Yeah, I think it comes down between Bo Nix and Marvin Harrison Jr. But
I think Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, we're in all agreement. It's one of those guys. I don't know. Don't they have 5 finalists? But those 3, I
think 4. You've got Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah,
from Washington. He's the Washington quarterback.
Actually, I don't know.
Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. For me, Bo Nix is such a big name, and has been. I mean, it seemed like he's been in college football for like 10 years.
5 years.
I mean, he was at Auburn.
Auburn, yeah.
You should be able to win a Heisman as a 5th-year senior. Go to the NFL.
But he's got the big hype. He's got the big name, and that's what sells. That's what these, and I don't know. When you have a committee voting.
Can we take that into account in the committee voting?
But it's just Heisman. It's just Heisman winners, right? That's all who's voting. I know that's all it is past Heisman winners. Not that's not a committee, and there's not politics involved in that.
Well, I mean, but who's voting for the college football? It's coaches, and it's got all.
But it's a committee too in the end. Like, the committee is made up of probably ex-college football people, or maybe current. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it has college coaches, because I've heard that some coaches would have to step out of the room when they're talking about their team or voting on their team.
Okay,
they would have to step out. They don't get a vote in that.
But who knows? What if Florida State's quarterback?
Yeah, I think
what if out of nowhere they're like, yeah, he wins.
Right now the odds do have Jaden Daniels leading the pack, followed by Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and then lastly Marvin
Penix
Harrison.
Jr. is over Bo Nix. Is that because he's in the playoff? I mean, he just beat Bo Nix, but I think Bo Nix.
So is that how you would look at it there? I mean, we'll get into this when we talk about the playoffs. Who's over who?
Heisman's different. It's like 100% the player.
But obviously it's performance, but obviously he proved that he outperformed and his team could outperform.
Yeah. But all year, I think, Washington's kind of been playing with fire most of the year.
It would be nice to see. Of course, I don't know if Washington can top Michigan. I truly believe they're the number 1 team.
They had to beat Texas first, and then Michigan has to beat Alabama for that to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh, I get what you're. Yeah.
But for them to win the national championship,
Yeah.
for Washington to win the national championship, that would be nice to have the Heisman Trophy winner on your team. I don't know. I mean, Jaden Daniels.
Is there that
Jaden Daniels is leading the pack by a lot in the odds.
Is there politics involved where they?
Jaden Daniels has had an incredible season compared to what he did at Arizona State. I think he's like hundreds of yards up from where he was at Arizona State. Obviously, it's a completely different, the team level from Arizona State to LSU is crazy.
Yeah.
But
Does it benefit anybody that they're like, hey, we need Penix Jr. to win the Heisman because they're in the playoffs, or does it even matter? Do you think? To me, it doesn't. I just think there's more hype around it. I think there's more hype around it when you have them winning the Heisman and then going to play, because it'll help saying, hey, the Heisman Trophy winner's playing tonight. But moving on to the playoff, I mean, what are y'all thoughts? Did the committee get it right? Did they get it right?
Was that a serious question?
How do you ask that though? Like, how bad did they screw up? Or
how is Georgia not in? I don't understand.
I understand the fact that Alabama, and we talked about this last week before we even knew. Like, when you have a top 10 matchup, which you do in championship games, that championship game shouldn't decide number one being knocked completely out of you know what I mean?
Yeah,
in the regular season, if that game happens, how many spots does Georgia fall?
Alabama,
if the number 5 team or whatever Alabama was 7.
The whole thing is Alabama won and Texas beat them, and that's what screwed everything up, because if Georgia won, playoff committee would be fine. It'd be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State. But when Alabama beat Georgia, your thinking is, well, Alabama has to be in. That's their thinking, not necessarily mine. Alabama has to be in. And they probably were thinking, well, Georgia too, but Alabama lost to Texas way before the year. They have to jump. Like, I'm not saying I agree with this thinking, but you have to have Texas in if you put Alabama in. You can't knock out Washington. You can't knock out Michigan.
Why did Alabama jump Florida State?
I mean...
It's all
explain that to me.
Theory.
That's the only thing.
No.
Is
Florida State,
you have an undefeated team. They had the third toughest schedule.
Yeah.
On paper, they jumped them 4 spots, but Florida State was not ranked 4th in the playoff committee's mind. They were hoping. Yeah, they were hoping, like, when the quarterback goes down, they should have, if that was going to be there, that's what they said, that
they shouldn't have been ranked high anymore.
They should have brought them down right then rather than it. Because, yes,
you do that, though?
Alabama beats number 1 Georgia. They're ranked 8th. Florida State's ranked 4th. They still win by double digits to a really good, I mean, not really good, but a 15th ranked Louisville or something. So both teams win, and Alabama jumps them like 4 spots. But they didn't really jump them that many spots.
Michigan's number 1. Their quarterback is nowhere near sniffing a Heisman. He's nowhere near one of the best. Why are they ranked number 1? If you use that theory, why is their quarterback not determining what you can't do that? The talent of your team shouldn't dictate where your ranking is in the country. It doesn't matter if Florida State.
They were hoping Florida State would have lost and not.
Florida State didn't need a quarterback. They proved it doesn't matter the quarterback. Our defense is so freaking good.
They went into Florida, beat Florida. They beat a ranked Louisville
undefeated team and won their conference, which you asked them to do. All you asked them is
lined up LSU. They lined up 2 SEC teams and beat them.
You
kicked the crap out of
asked
LSU.
them to win 14 games. You put 14 games in front of them. You asked them to do that, and they did that.
And people will say,
regardless of your quarterback getting hurt, regardless of a second quarterback getting hurt, you're on your 3rd string quarterback. Your defense is so freaking good. Like, I want to see that defense match up against Alabama, match up against Texas. Like, that's what we want to see.
And people will say, well, you have to work your strength of schedule. Well, you had to play your conference. You can't just say get in a better conference. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. I mean, this year it seems that's how it works, but in general, that's not how it works. But like you scheduled 2 SEC teams, and you schedule these years in advance. So who knows where LSU, who knows where Florida is going to be. And those are still, I mean, they're SEC teams, even though they've had down years. LSU was projected to go to the Final Four at the beginning of the season. You kicked the crap out of LSU. You beat Florida with your backup quarterback. And really, I think Florida should have won that game. They had that late penalty that they shot themselves in the foot. I think Florida was going to come back and win that game. But you schedule a game against Florida, in Gainesville, and you beat them. Like, that's what they were doing. Like, hey, we schedule, like, what do you want us to do? Schedule Alabama and Oklahoma to we did what we were supposed to do. You're basically saying, don't get hurt. That's what you're saying, or be a better media market.
Like,
I don't know.
I can see where you take Georgia out because they weren't a conference champion.
Yeah,
I can see that, but I can't see where
it's where this is the consistency.
I can't see where Florida State won their conference undefeated, didn't lose a game like Alabama did, and you're keeping them out.
I know,
because you're looking for, we're looking for the 4 best teams.
I know.
They proved they were a best team because they were undefeated.
That's
you
where
can't say Alabama is one of the best teams when they lose a game.
That's
Even
where the
an argument for
consistency
Texas,
comes in.
If you lose a game, you're obviously not the best.
You can't be. The committee can't say we one of the 4 best teams in because Georgia's in. Take Washington out and put Georgia in. Not that they wouldn't compete. I'm not saying anything against Washington.
Yeah.
But Georgia, Alabama, again, I think Georgia's still a little bit favored. Georgia, Texas. Georgia would be favored. Georgia, Washington. Maybe not Michigan. Maybe Michigan. Maybe not. I don't know.
Georgia against Alabama again. Georgia wins that
game. If your argument is 4 best teams, you didn't get the 4 best teams in. Yeah. If you're saying most deserved, Florida State's got to be most deserved. It has nothing to do with their quarterback getting hurt. That has nothing to do with deserving or not deserving.
Yeah.
They had a competent, out of conference schedule. They don't pick their conference schedule. You're in a Power 5 conference. Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, you should get out of the Mountain West or you should. They are in the ACC. What are they supposed to do? Like, man, you should have been in the SEC. That's not competition. Wise, I mean, I don't know that there's a 100% right answer, but they are giving the wrong reasons.
Expanding the playoff,
and next year would be, but next year that problem's solved because you have 12 teams, and I don't think we're gonna have this heated debate over who's ranked 12th and 13th and 14th.
You're obviously bringing in teams that didn't have an outside shot at all.
But
I mean, you're gonna have pretty much any team that goes to your conference championship. And now we're losing a power. We're going to be down to 4 power conferences.
Basically.
So you're going to have those top 8.
4 should be the 4 winners.
The 4 winners,
no matter what. I don't care if you have a losing record. If you win your conference, so what you're saying?
4 get a buyout.
What you're saying? Because I've used this argument for Coastal Carolina, for UCF, never Florida State, a Power 5. Now UCF is in the Big 12. But my thing is, even with a 14 playoff, like, just throw an undefeated in there. The same thing when we move to 12. I don't care if you're ranked 24th. If James Madison goes undefeated, give them a spot. Who cares? Let's just throw it out there because they're still. But if you're going to be in Division 1, if you're going to tell me you don't make enough money, your school. I know they're not coming out and say that, but there's an SEC. Your team doesn't make enough money. You're not ranked high enough in the preseason to make it. The preseason polls to work your way up. You don't have a hard enough schedule. Whatever. Just blow it up, have 4 conferences, and everybody outside the Power 4, now Power 4, y'all are Division 2 or Division 1A, because there's no way you have a shot at winning. Like, maybe you could make a Cinderella type run, but they're not going to give you that shot. So there's no reason for you to play in Division 1.
Dumping on to the other 3 teams that are in the playoffs now, does this make to them that they brought in an Alabama team, which they had to, but going to be what this really came down to is Georgia or Alabama.
Yeah. Because
Alabama beating Georgia, it didn't feel like you could put Georgia in, but you had to have an SEC team in. I don't care what you say. This isn't conspiracy. This is true facts. They had to have an SEC team because the SEC conference covers too much of the country.
Yeah.
And too much of the college football fan base. Mm-hmm. They had to have the SEC involved in this playoff. It came down between them. How much of a dumping is that, though, for Texas? Because they wouldn't have done the same thing for Texas.
No, they wouldn't.
They wouldn't have done the same thing for Washington. Michigan, they were hoping Michigan
would win. This is why Texas moving and Oklahoma are moving to the SEC, because they're being held back by the Big 12.
Because of all the allegations to Michigan, they wanted them out. They didn't want them to be the number 1 team.
They wanted Ohio State to win. This is the
worst situation that could have happened for them because they wanted them out.
They wanted Florida State. Oh,
because what if this does come down?
Saturday.
What if this does come down and it's tainted? This becomes a tainted situation where your number 1 team goes in, could be even the champion of this year. And
last Saturday they wanted Georgia to win. That would have avoided any distraction. Or like, okay, we'll put Florida State in. It makes sense. Or they wanted Florida State to lose so they didn't have to put them in. The wild card is that Texas beat Alabama. If Texas didn't beat Alabama and Texas beat Oklahoma and they were in the same exact situation, but Texas beat Oklahoma instead of Alabama, Alabama beats Georgia. It's Georgia and Alabama. Like, I think they put Georgia over Florida State. If Georgia beats Alabama in the SEC championship, Alabama and Texas are out and Florida State's in because there's no reason for anybody. The only thing that thrusts Texas up, I mean, they did beat whatever Oklahoma State was ranked 17th or whatever. They kicked the crap out of them, so it helped. But beating Alabama, and even though I'm surprised that that's even a factor because it was so early in the season, but Texas got in because they're thinking, which you can agree with or disagree with, I don't think you're necessarily wrong either way, was we can't not put Texas in because outside of losing to Oklahoma on the last second play on a neutral site, they're only ranked 7th and not 4th or 5th because Oklahoma's lost a couple of games. If Oklahoma has one loss, and Oklahoma's probably in the conversation too, but then
it would come down.
They would have played in the you would have played Oklahoma again. And if you would have won, you probably would have been thrust into the top 4. But Florida State, unfortunately, is the odd. I don't necessarily think they put Texas in because it'd be a bigger draw. It certainly helps them, but it was all Alabama because they beat Alabama and then Alabama beat Georgia. And then your thinking is, I can leave Alabama out, but Alabama just beat Georgia. It's the same thinking of how can you put Alabama in without Texas because Texas beat Alabama. And really, they should have
For me, it should have come down to, okay, yes, you just beat Georgia, but you guys are still 2 one-loss teams, so now we got to look at other.
And you've had really bad wins. You were trailing South Florida at halftime.
How do you take the number 1 team all season long? They lose one game to a top. I think there were 7. Where it was Alabama ranked 7th,
8th. Texas was 7th.
So the 8th ranked team. So like my theory says, a top 10 team anytime they can lose, especially a championship game. That's going to drop them out of the top 4. It wouldn't, like I said, it wouldn't happen in a regular season. In a regular season game, if these two teams match up against each other, Georgia drops 1, maybe 2 spots.
I'm telling you,
top 10 loss.
Texas was that wild card when they beat them. I still think Florida State's out, even if that doesn't happen. The scenario where they lose to Alabama, beat Oklahoma. I think Georgia's 4, maybe 3. Alabama's 2, 1.
These one-loss teams that beat up on each other, and Florida State ends up being the odd one out.
So,
like, I don't know how else you did it. I mean, you'd have to look at other criterias, but how do you put in 2 one-loss teams and take out an undefeated team?
No, this is all theory.
Bring back the BCS, man.
Last year, the national championship game was like 60-something to 7 for a team that was undefeated, won their conference championship, got put into the top 4. And now they beat Michigan. But
TCU wasn't a conference championship. They lost to Kansas State. They weren't even
how do you put Florida State in? But you put TCU in last year. We don't
because it wasn't
because you had
5 and 6.
You had an SEC team there guaranteed.
5, 6, and 7 weren't as close as 5, 6, and 7 were. Well, I guess not 6. Ohio State was never getting in since they lost. But TCU did beat Michigan.
They beat Michigan. So I heard that they didn't put their obviously because it lines up if you think about it. They didn't put Florida State in, so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
If you look at it last year,
I'm sure
TCU,
the viewership
Georgia,
was lower with TCU. TCU on a national level,
is small school.
Hot, but TCU's not going to beat Georgia. Michigan, Georgia is so much better of a game. That's what they thought was going to happen. Didn't happen. You get the blowout national championship game. They don't want that again. They want a chance that Florida State beats.
Florida State's not a bad draw. I mean,
I think you're right though. You're right. Is they were looking for what matchups can we put here because they're ranking them too. They're putting them. They're building the matchups.
They want Texas, Alabama, or Texas, Michigan in the champion. I mean, Washington wouldn't be
best teams. I think it might be best matchups.
Yeah, I agree.
Texas, Washington is good. I mean, they just played in the Alamo Bowl last year, so it's a rematch of that. And they're very good. Like, it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, if somebody's placing bets, you're thinking of you're thinking of the money lines. Georgia versus Texas. I mean, how do you bet on Texas in that situation?
Yeah.
If Georgia's in. But you also have the Texas Alabama matchup where that they played in the regular season. Texas beat them, and now it's later in the season. And then obviously Michigan, Washington State. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I think the committee obviously doesn't want Washington to win for that reason. But you couldn't put FSU in front of Washington. Washington won arguably the best conference in college football this year. They, beating Oregon twice. Oregon, if they would have won, they would have been in the college football playoff. That's only Oregon's 2 losses were both to Washington, very close games. They beat USC, which when they played USC, it was a good matchup. When they played Colorado was still kind of there.
They pretty much started the downfall for Colorado.
Yeah, and Washington hasn't struggled. Like, I'll even say the first half of the season, Alabama struggled. I said, South Florida, they were trailing at halftime. There was a lot of bad games. Florida State didn't necessarily struggle. I mean, obviously they kicked the crap out of LSU, but they didn't start struggling until they lost their quarterback. But then again, beat Florida in Florida. You beat Louisville in the ACC championship by double digits.
I think if Florida State still has their quarterback, they're in. Over Alabama.
I agree, because Florida State's a big name. It's not like, I don't think they were planning on keeping them out from the beginning. They would have preferred to left Washington out, if we're talking about money, but they, Washington's had a good season. You can't.
Yeah, and a great conference. You win the conference championship.
Yeah, the best conference. I mean, they were probably pulling
they
for
were
Oregon.
Too, right?
Yeah.
Washington
Yeah, Washington's
so undefeated and win the conference championship and the best conference this year. You can't.
And probably too. I mean, it's hard to beat to beat a team twice. This is a situation. They beat Oregon both times, top 10 teams. I think USC was probably a top 10 team when they played. I mean, they were definitely ranked.
It was a good Oregon team. I mean, Washington deserves to be there. Washington's done
potentially
it
potentially a Heisman winning quarterback too. If Bo Nix wins, which he very may well win, you're saying Washington beat a top 10 Oregon. They beat the Heisman Trophy winner twice this season.
Yeah.
So what is the bracket is Washington,
Texas, because Texas is number 3, Alabama's 4. Yeah. And Michigan, Alabama, and Rose Bowl, which is what amazing matchup.
The worst scenario here is if Alabama wins, because that makes the committee look right. If Alabama beats Michigan, then it's like, we'll see. Yeah, we were right by putting Alabama there.
If it's Alabama, Texas in the national championship, they're like, you wanted Florida State over who? Because you can't make a change. I mean, you can't say Florida State over Michigan. You can't say Florida State over Washington, even if they lose. But you're saying.
And if Alabama
and I agree,
I'm
biased. I wanted the Longhorns in, but if you tell me FSU over Longhorns, like, you can say, well, Alabama beat. Like, no, we're talking about FSU or Longhorns. I think even with the backup quarterback, Longhorns are definitely. I think they'd win. I think Alabama, Florida State, they'd win, but they were undefeated. They did what they were supposed to do. I don't care what your favorite is going to be. Washington's ranked higher than Texas, but Texas is favored by a few points, so it doesn't. That's it. But if you say Florida, who's more deserving, Florida State, Alabama, based on Alabama's schedule? I mean, Alabama's wins outside of Georgia, I would say Florida State went undefeated, and they didn't have the crappy looking wins at Alabama. Same thing with Texas. They were up 21-0 against Houston. They let Houston come back. Houston was a bad team this year. TCU, they barely beat TCU this year. You can say the same thing. But if Texas, Alabama goes in, those are arguably the only two you could say. Florida State, not saying, well, Texas beat Alabama. No. Alabama beat Georgia. No, I'm talking about FSU, Texas. FSU should probably be in. FSU, Alabama. FSU should probably be in over either one of those teams. But, yeah, all this crap we're giving the committee, you're right. If it's Texas, Alabama, that's what they want. Mostly because they don't want Michigan to win and have that tainted. They probably don't want Washington in. Texas, Alabama would be the biggest matchup because it was the highest rated regular season college game in 10 years.
And for a non-biased, a non-tainted, I don't know how you would.
Texas, for sure. No. Texas, Alabama is the matchup most people want.
Washington. You want Washington to go all the way and win?
Well, I don't. I'm a Longhorns fan.
What are you gonna argue about then?
Yeah,
there's no argument. There's no tainting. They didn't cheat. They haven't done All they did was win. They went undefeated. Like you said, they've done it quietly. Washington is a team that if you don't have a team in the playoff now, get behind Washington
because you
support
want
them,
you want the committee to
cheer
look
for
bad.
them, because at that point it puts everything else. It shows the committee, hey, you were wrong. You put in nothing against Texas because I think Texas is deserving. Somebody had to be there. One of the one-loss teams had to be there, but Texas shouldn't be here. Alabama shouldn't be here. FSU should have been in at least to have had a shot. Because look, you put these 2 one-loss teams in, and then they still.
We're talking about more well-deserving because I think Texas or even full-strength Florida State without their third-string quarterback. I think Texas or Alabama wins. Hell, I think Ohio State would probably beat Michigan if they played again. But Ohio State's shouldn't be in because they're not deserving right now.
They should have looked ahead of this. This should have never been a 4-team playoff. This should have always been a 6. It should have always been a 6-team playoff. 1 and 2 teams, which more than likely are going to be undefeated teams. It's very rare you're going to have 1 and 2 that aren't undefeated.
Yeah.
Those 1 and 2 should have a bye. The other 4 teams play each other, play in. That I think at least at minimum of 6 teams, you can get it right because you get all the conference champions. Plus, you just and what I do is you don't even care about conference champions at that point. Really, you just ranking them.
And
I think you could have done 5.
I joke.
You have the one obviously like. So you take the
I think you're lopsided. It always has to be
5.
even, though. It always has to be even. That's why I say you do 6. Your Power 5, you can put those 5 in. Then you've got one wild card that could be an outlier. That could be.
I have joked about bring back the BCS, but the BCS it was only 2 teams, but it was all computer based. Now you're having the bias put in. And I say now you move to 12. It's less an argument, but
bad with BCS.
But you look at a 12-team playoff, the top 4 are going to have bye weeks, and then you're going to complain because Florida State's going to get left out of the top 4, and like, well, now we don't have a bye week. That's a big deal, So I guess you'll still have that. The regular season's going to the games are going to mean less than they used to. But
I think I sent you this thing that was Mike Leach. When he was at Washington State, I believe, he was doing a press conference about when they were going to this playoff system.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was, well, why we go back, right? We're trying to figure out a playoff system. Okay, we go down to the Pee Wee football or whatever, pop.
It works for because the NCAA says it won't work. You can't figure it out, but every other level. Then you go to
middle school. Yeah, middle school works.
Middle school, high school.
Okay, well,
Division 2, Division 2, Division 3, NFL.
Let's go. Yeah, everyone except Division 1 football does a big playoff system. Right.
Every sport.
Yes.
College football. College basketball, college baseball, college hockey.
You're telling me you couldn't make a 36-team football tournament?
Yeah, why couldn't you? Because here it is. How many games are they playing now? Right. We said like these teams are going 13-0, 14-0.
Yeah.
Okay. Cut out your conference championships. Who cares? Like you win your conference by whoever is the top of the conference at the end. Cut it back down to 10 weeks.
Give somebody a regular season championship just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
NCAA basketball does. I know they do play conference championship tournament, but they say
you can't play multiple days, multiple things. Football is
different.
And
right now, Texas and Washington, Alabama and Michigan, that's not for 3 or 4 more weeks.
Yeah, you take out.
Yeah, why are we cutting out all these weeks?
Move everything back.
You get a 1 week bye or a 1 week break before the national championship.
So everybody is. It's bowl eligible and not having just if you're bowl eligible, you're playoffs.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
So why not make all these bowl games as the playoff games?
At this point, you're just playing a meaningless game.
And it takes a lot of these bowl games and makes it. Yeah. You take these bowl games and make them more meaningful.
Yeah,
like you said, make the Cheez-It
the Cotton Bowl is going to be a big deal. The Rose Bowl is going to be a big deal regardless. But the Cheez-It Bowl, the Belk Bowl, the Hellman mayonnaise,
Bowl.
Whatever, the Texas Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, those will make so much more money as legitimate playoff games.
Yeah, make those playoff games and play that. Start that now. You could have at least 4 weeks. They're playing the Texas Bowl against OSU.
Yeah.
So, we're running out of time, but the 4-team playoff has ended.
And hit us in the chat, man. Let us
know. Tell us know your
Obviously,
tell us your thoughts.
It's a week old, but we're still, we're going to be talking about this until the national championship, trying to prove that this committee was wrong.
Yeah, and this 14, I'm glad it's gone, and it's gone in disgrace, and we'll talk about this for years, especially if you're a Florida State person. Maybe Florida State just puts up a banner like UCF did in 2017 national champ. They claim it's legit. Like even A&M has a couple of claimed national championships. You're like, they won national champ. Every school does it. Like most of the time, it's from like the 50s or 60s. But why not? They hang a banner. No one's going to stop you. You're a claimed national championship. And like you said,
you might even get a banner hung up in here.
If Oklahoma and Texas don't win, and it's Michigan and Washington, that may give you even more saying, hey, Florida State should have been in, because if Alabama or Texas get blown out,
yeah,
you might say Florida State should have been in there. But guys, thanks for listening to us. Be sure to check us out every Saturday here on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton.
I'm Tony.
We'll see you later.